He's come to collect.
Alpha Team is flying around the forest zone situated in northwest Raccoon City, where we are searching for the helicopter of our compatriots, Bravo Team, who disappeared during the middle of their mission.
Haven't found it yet?
Not yet.
Hi guys. Today's video is going to be the first of its kind for me. Remember when? We'll focus on toys and things from the past that I wish were still around
today. And I couldn't think of a better place to start than with the classic Resident Evil toy line.
Resident Evil
Is awesome. It's one of my all-time favorite video game franchises. And while the games have had a consistent presence in our homes over the past 25 years, toys and collectibles have been few and far between, which is a shame. I wanted to take a minute to go back and showcase some of the awesome Resident Evil action figures that have been made over the years, in an attempt to hopefully will them back into existence. So let's get started with some of the very first Resident Evil toys I ever owned, the wonderfully nostalgic Toy Biz Video Game Superstars line. God, is it just me or does everyone miss Toy Biz? I love their stuff, and the older I get, and the more I retroactively go back and collect toys from my childhood, the more I realize that Toy Biz was friggin' great. For me personally, I had gotten the Resident Evil 2 toys way before I even knew that the first Resident Evil even had a toy line. Honestly, I got those toys well before I even knew what the first Resident Evil game was about. Whoops. I loved and still love these figures. I remember getting Hunk and opening him in the backseat of the car on the ride home, because I just needed to get that super shotgun into his hands as fast as humanly possible. These were such toys, and I get that it's like, yeah, duh, they're toys. Of course they're toys. But what I mean by that is that these toys were meant to be played with. They were designed with play in mind. They each came packed with some sort of creature, whether it was a zombie, licker, a giant spider, or even a cute little Sherry Birkin, so that you always had someone for your survivor to fight or run away from. This was masterful toy design. Also, at the time, these toys were insanely detailed. I still love the way they look, but back in 1998, these were like the early McFarlane Spawn figures, leaps and bounds above any other toy on the shelf at the time. They made you want to play the game, and the game made you want to play with your toys. It was a perfect symbiotic relationship between a game and its merchandise, and I know it had so much to do with my lifelong love of the Resident Evil series and its characters. Jumping off of Toy Biz, there's a lesser known set of Resident Evil figures that comes from a company called Moby Dick Toys. Now, I say lesser known because in general, people wouldn't know about this toy line because it was never released outside of Japan. But amongst Resident Evil collectors, these are holy grail level items. These figures were released under the Biohazard 3 branding, but feature characters from many different Resident Evil titles, including the unreleased N64 version of Resident Evil 0, but more on that later. Simply put, these toys are amazing. I love Resident Evil 3, so slapping Jill Valentine and Nemesis on anything is going to get me on board, but it's the sheer depth of this line that makes it so fantastic. Jill alone appears in her default outfit from Resident Evil 3, her awesome Resident Evil 3 rendition of her Resident Evil 1 Stars outfit, and she even has her friggin' Dino Crisis Regina costume as an action figure in this line. This is by far the most complete set of Resident Evil toys that has ever been released, so obviously it was never released in the US. There are so many characters that only exist in toy form because of this line, such as the final form of Nemesis, which was actually a Build-A-Figure long before Marvel Legends was doing Build-A-Figures. But for me, there's one toy that stands out above all the rest, and that's the amazing Rebecca Chambers in her unreleased RE0 N64 outfit. How and why this toy exists is beyond me, but I'm so happy it does.
Maybe somebody did it and didn't take credit for it. Maybe it was already done and didn't need doing in the first place. I have no idea who did it, what they did, or how they did it so well. And you know what? Jimmy Crack Corn And I don't care.
I love this outfit on Rebecca. Stars Jill's my favorite Jill, so having Rebecca also wear a similar outfit, but with a medic aesthetic to it, wow, I'll say that 5 times fast, but is just...
Ooh la la.
I only own 3 figures from this line. Resident Evil 2's alternate costume for Claire, Code Veronica Chris, and Dino Crisis Jill. But if I was made of money, I would try to add even more to my collection. But they go for a pretty penny. Like a really pretty penny. And definitely check them out if you're looking for alternate costumes, big figures, or just a whole bunch of Resident Evil goodness. Palisades Toys is another company that tossed their hat into the proverbial Resident Evil ring. But they didn't have too much of an extensive lineup of figures, but they were beautifully detailed sculpts, mostly focusing on characters from Resident Evil Code Veronica. The Claire specifically is a really cool figure, and I foolishly passed on it way too many times in an attempt to get it actually in package, but also with her vest on. I don't remember these coming out at the time, but Lord, I would have wanted the Leon really, really bad. Palisades also made a few statues as well, but I kind of just want to talk about the action figures for the purposes of this video, but they're really cool too, especially the Resident Evil 3 Jill. She's so vintage looking, it looks like the cutscenes from Resident Evil 3, but on the PlayStation 1 where they were like really, really smooth, but it's cool, but yeah, whatever, we're gonna move on from that. Now, I finally got to the toy line a lot of you guys are probably the most familiar with, and it was the set that had the widest distribution since the classic Toy Biz figures, and it was NECA's toy line. This one hurts a lot, because think of how awesome NECA's toys are nowadays, and think of them making Resident Evil figures now with all those accessories, and oh my goodness, it pains me to think about how cool this line would be. But regardless, we did get some really awesome anniversary figures from the Resident Evil remake on GameCube, but also Resident Evil 4 and Resident Evil 5. They even had a strange one-off figure of Vector from Operation Raccoon City, but it was the only one they made, and they never made anyone else, which kind of stinks because there was a lot of good characters in that game. But that's alright.
Oh, Jesus, God, no.
Jog on.
Pack it in,
Square.
silly bastard!
These toys were awesome, and I wish they just kept going with the line, but there is a nice selection to still choose from. Characters like Leon and Ada Wong are here, Jill and Chris, even a really fantastic grouping of creatures like the Resident Evil 1 Tyrant, Licker, Hunter, which is like really, really big figure, and so many different zombie types, including Crimson Heads, which is actually really cool. It's a fantastic line that has recently jumped up in value, so it's getting kind of hard to collect them all Pokemon style nowadays, but definitely worth a look. With NECA's line dying out, we really saw the end of Resident Evil toys at retail. Sadly, it was honestly the end of Resident Evil toys in general, because other than a few hot toys, which I kind of consider more appealing to like a high-end statue collector rather than an action figure collector, we really haven't gotten any Resident Evil toys, which sucks. Most of the Resident Evil products we see nowadays are insanely high-priced statues, which are amazing looking, but who the frig has room for all of these museum-sized figures? Or like $3 to drop on them at that. I think the most bizarre recent release for the franchise was these buildable guns. I have no clue who these are for, and even more so why you would want a pistol that belongs to Claire, but no Claire action figure to give it to. It's just weird. It's almost like they can't use the likeness of the characters or something unless they get top dollar for it. So we keep seeing these large statues that are created of Leon or Claire or Jill or whoever, and they're over $1,000 each. But we never get like a $20 figure or even like a $50 figure, which is kind of odd. The lack of Resident Evil toys is truly a bizarre situation, but it's not unlike the events that are featured in the games themselves.
A bizarre incident occurred in the outskirts of an American suburb called Raccoon City.
The games are extremely popular. Even the hilariously bad but still somehow enjoyable movies that star Mila Jovovich were highly successful. So why is there no products? Why doesn't Storm Collectibles grab the license? They already own so many Capcom franchises already, like Street Fighter and even Darkstalkers, so Resident Evil would definitely sell. Speaking of which, where's their Morrigan toy? The toy that will never come out because I want it too much. But anyways, where have all the Resident Evil toys gone? I don't know, but I wish they'd come back. I miss these toys. Well, maybe miss is the wrong term. I own a ton of these figures. But what I miss is collecting Resident Evil toys. New Resident Evil toys. Over the past decade, there's been a noticeable lack of any sort of action figures that pertain to the Resident Evil franchise. I really hope they're close to rising from the dead again, to grace Toys' shelves once more, or at least like an online retailer let me order them. But I don't know, at the end of the day, Resident Evil toys were awesome, and I just wanted to talk about them.
So, it's finally over. Sherry, you look terrible.
No worse than you, Claire.
Come on, time to leave.
Now? What's wrong? Is something following us?
We have to go. We don't have any time to waste.
Go? Where?
Hey, it's up to us to take out Umbrella.
He's come to collect.